Imagine a large mountain with a forest of tall trees around the bottom of the mountain. If we were to stand at the bottom of the mountain and look toward the horizon, we wouldn't be able to see very far because of the forest. The trees would be blocking our view. And because we couldn't see very far, our understanding of the surrounding area would be very limited. But if we walked up to the middle of the mountain, we could see over the top of the trees. Then we would be able to see more of the forest, and because of our position, we could experience the sunrise and distant horizon. Then if we were to walk up to the top of the mountain, we would improve our understanding and view of the surrounding area. We would be able to see the whole forest and experience the sunrise and sunset. We could also see the moon and stars. We would see, hear, and experience the mountain completely differently than the individual who was on the middle of the mountain or the individual who was at the bottom. The mountain represents life, and everyone is on the mountain. Everyone has a mental position on the mountain, and depending upon our mental position, that's what we are able to see, that's what we are able to hear, and that's what we are able to experience. So it's our mental position that determines our level of understanding life. At the bottom of the mountain, our view, our understanding and experience with life is limited, so the way we make decisions is limited. To improve our ability to make decisions and to get a better understanding of life, we must climb up higher on the mountain. Only by climbing up higher on the mountain and improving our mental position can we see, hear, and experience life in a more holistic, wiser way. Let's pretend for a moment that we can go back in time and that we are going to live with some cavemen. And the cavemen have never learned to share, so they do not hunt or work together or cooperate with each other. Now we have to realize that if we are going to live with these cavemen, the next time we get sick, no one is going to take care of us. So our illness could turn into a life-threatening situation. Or if we become injured, no one would take care of us, so this could turn into a life-threatening situation. And we wouldn't be able to save a large amount of food because someone would take it. So without a food supply, we might starve during the winter. For our own comfort, for our own safety, the best insurance policy that we have is to teach these cavemen to cooperate, to share, and to work together. So in order to teach them cooperation and sharing, we might have them sit in a circle and share their hunting secrets. And we might have them pass food back and forth to each other to teach them to share and cooperate. Since this is the first time that they have practiced sharing, our lesson would be fun and interesting. The cavemen would think of our sharing lesson as a game that's fun to play. Because of their level of understanding cooperation and sharing, it's as if they are standing at the bottom of a mountain looking toward the horizon. Their view of sharing and cooperation would be limited. It's as if their mental position is at the bottom of a mountain, so it would be hard for them to see how sharing, cooperation, and harmony would apply to reality. They would have a difficult time applying sharing and cooperation to their daily lives. For example, several of the cavemen would try out the concept of sharing to see if it would really work. So they would put some food out in the middle of the cave to share it. Someone would walk into the cave who was hungry. Would the individual who was hungry remember the lesson on sharing and sit down and share the food? No, they would just take the food and walk away. Then someone would walk into the cave who was angry. Would this individual remember our lesson on sharing and sit down and share the food? No, they would just take the food and walk out of the cave. So the cavemen who were willing to share would tell us that sharing doesn't work. They could even prove to us that the cavemen who were sharing are going hungry. Another caveman might tell us that we caused him problems because we told him to share his hunting secrets. And because he cooperated with us and told everyone where his secret fishing spot was, he lost all of his fish. So he would be angry at us for teaching him the concept of sharing. The cavemen who were trying to share, cooperate, and be friendly would be having more problems than everyone else. So they would be upset with us. And since we insist that they should keep sharing and cooperating, the cavemen would think that we are a problem, and they would ask us to leave the cave. It's as though their mental position is at the bottom of the mountain and our mental position is at the top of the mountain. And when we talk about cooperation, harmony, and sharing, it's as though we are talking about the sunrise, sunset, moon, and stars. These things are not real to them. The cavemen have a mental position, a level of understanding life, and this gives them a quality of being, a perception, which is their truth. And this is their reality, a way of life that really works best. And because of their reality, because of the way they think, they have automatically created a belief system. And because of their belief system, they are mentally living at the bottom of the mountain. Because of their belief system, they believe that sharing and cooperation doesn't work, and that fighting and secrecy is the best way to survive. The real problem that they have is with their belief system, not with our concepts of sharing and cooperation. Sharing isn't a problem. We aren't the problem. It's their belief system that's the problem. With sharing and cooperation, we could have stopped many of their serious problems. We tried to give them what they needed, but they didn't get it. They didn't understand what we were doing because our awareness, our level of understanding life was too holistic. We were too metaphysical, too classical for them. Because of their belief system, they have problems, and all they had to do to solve their problems was to expand their belief system. By expanding their belief system, they could have elevated their level of understanding life, reached a higher mental position, and improved their quality of life. Trust, cooperation, harmony, and sharing were already there to be used. All the cavemen had to do was to start using and practicing these concepts. But it's difficult for people to see how materialistic problems can be solved by expanding their belief system. So the caveman might say to us that their children are going hungry, that everyone is fighting, and they have to spend most of their time guarding their food. And then to make matters worse, we want to waste their time by teaching sharing and cooperation. And this is one of the biggest problems in everyone's life. It's difficult to see how our problems can be solved by expanding our belief system. So people often attack problems and live with their problems rather than work on expanding their belief system. We were asked to leave the cave because we wanted to teach cooperation and sharing. The same thing has happened to some of the wisest people throughout history. Some of the greatest philosophers, humanitarians, and spiritual leaders throughout history were asked to leave society. They were asked to leave not because they were wrong, but because their solutions were outside of the cultural belief system. They were too holistic, too classical for the common belief system. They were even killed and tortured because of the negative emotions that are created when a belief system is challenged. The last thing that people do is to question their own beliefs and try to elevate their level of understanding life. And this is exactly what they need to do to get in touch with themselves and life. Now let's go back to our caveman story again. We were asked to leave the cave because we wanted to teach sharing and cooperation. So in order to survive, we must find our own cave and set up our own community. Who could we get to live with us? Who would be willing to learn sharing and cooperation? Basically, there are three kinds of people who might listen. We could get the young children who haven't established a belief system. They would be teachable. The cavemen who have lost everything and are not allowed to live in the cave might be willing to listen. And there are those who would be willing to learn something new. These are the ones who are usually receptive to new ideas. So we would take these three kinds of cave dwellers and go miles away and set up our own community in our own cave. Then we would elevate their level of understanding, cooperation, harmony, and sharing. By doing this, we would establish a new belief system, and because of the belief system, we would have a harmonious environment. There would be more significance and meaning in everyone's life. And with this new belief system, each individual would live more effectively because of their quality of being. For example, if an individual was lost in the forest, they would be more in harmony with themselves and the environment. They would endure hardships better, deal with pain and problems more effectively. As an individual or as a group, life would be more enjoyable and easier because of the belief system. Because of the new belief system, the cavemen who were living with us would have learned to see with insight. And everyone is just like the cavemen. We don't see with the eyes, we see with our belief system, we see with our quality of being, we see with insight. Let's compare the first cave with the second cave. By comparing the two caves, we are comparing two different belief systems. Then we can discover how a belief system affects our vision and level of understanding life. In the first cave, someone could be arrogant and sarcastic and no one would see it. In the second cave, if someone was arrogant and sarcastic, everyone would immediately see it as a major philosophical mistake and that the individual would be hurting themselves and everyone else too. In the first cave, someone could be negative and aggressive and no one would see it. In the second cave, if someone was negative and aggressive, everyone would immediately see it as a major philosophical mistake, and it would be obvious that the individual would be hurting themselves and everyone else too. In the first cave, they wouldn't want to teach cooperation, harmony, and sharing, and because of this, they would have troubles and problems, and no one would see why. In the second cave, the most important thing in life would be to teach everyone to understand themselves in life, and because of this, life would be inspirational, and wisdom would prevail, and everyone would see why. In the first cave, someone might be egotistical, macho, and have a quick temper, and they might be selected as a leader. In the second cave, this individual would be seen as being childish and immature, and they would not be given power or leadership. The first cave would be at the mercy of any fad or trend. The young cave children might find it fashionable to push people around for the fun of it and cover their bodies with ashes and fill the cave with opium smoke. And everyone would be involved. Then with time, there would be drug abuse problems. People would get hurt, and the cave would be a mess, and no one would see how these conditions came about. The second cave would not be at the mercy of any fad or trend. The younger cave children might find it fashionable to push people around for the fun of it or take drugs, but they would be quickly disciplined. They would be allowed the freedom to cover their bodies with ashes, but the fad wouldn't overwhelm everyone and dominate the way of life, because the people in the second cave would have entrusted themselves to finding a higher quality of life. They would live at a higher level of awareness, so they would be able to see a problem in advance and stop it before they are controlled and dominated by it. The people in the first cave wouldn't see the growth of a new problem, and they would even participate with it. The people in the second cave would quickly see the growth of a new problem and oppose it immediately. The moral of the story is this: we see with insight, and depending upon how we see, that's what we believe in, that's what we support, that's what we accept, and that's what we cannot see. We are blinded and do not see those things that do not fit into our belief system. And everyone has an action and reaction relationship in their lives because of the belief system that they create. For example, it's easy to see that the people who are living in the first cave have nervousness, tension, frustration, ulcers, drug abuse, and generation gap problems. And those who are living in the second cave are mentally contented and have harmony, respect, honor, and unity. Societies, families, organizations, groups, and individuals automatically set up belief systems, and that's how we live and relate to life. And regardless of what kind of society we live in, we can always improve our belief system in our family, with our friends, and with ourselves. One of the most important things that we can do in our lives is to keep adding to our belief system in a positive, constructive, holistic way, because it's the belief system that we form that will cause most of our problems. It's our belief system that determines our state of mind, vision, and experience with life. And to elevate our quality of life, we must start at the bottom of the mountain and step by step elevate our mental position, which means we must accept our belief system and familiarize ourselves with it and keep expanding it. When we first went to live with the cavemen, We were wise because we tried to elevate their quality of life by expanding their belief system. We were not materialistic. We could have taught them to insulate the cave or put a door on the front of the cave, but we wouldn't have been safe, comfortable, or happy until the cavemen improved their belief system and elevated their quality of life. Because of our wisdom, our main goal was to get the cavemen to improve their belief system and think more idealistically, more ethically. And the wisest philosophers, humanitarians, and spiritual leaders throughout history had the same goal. They tried to get people to add to themselves and build a more holistic belief system. They said that this was the most important thing in life, that this was the goal in life, and that this was the way to be successful in all aspects of our lives. The Greeks said, "Know thyself." Socrates said that the unexamined life was not worth living. Confucius, Gandhi, and Albert Schweitzer taught how important it is to mentally move in an ethical, idealistic way. They taught that progress was in and through the personality. Modern-day psychologists such as Dr. Carl Jung and Abraham Maslow also taught that the most important thing in life was to learn the law of our own being and add to our personality, and if we don't do this, we have missed the meaning to life. People are externalizing. They are not adding to themselves, so the human potential is often lost. Erich Fromm said that people are into things and gadgets, that they are not into life or growth. They are into having much and using much, not into being much. And another great humanitarian said that people reach the point of death to find out that they have never lived. The wisest people who have ever lived agreed that self-improvement is the base behind all other improvement and progress. Those who are wise take an interest in personal growth. They are open-minded and learn to see with new truths because they expand their belief system. There's knowledge and there's wisdom. Just because someone is smart and knows many facts doesn't mean they are wise. Someone can be an expert at reading, writing, and arithmetic. They can have all kinds of degrees, but this doesn't mean that they have added to their character. It doesn't mean that they are a wise parent, person, teacher, manager, or leader. It doesn't mean that they have a positive attitude or promote justice. Knowledge is important, but wisdom is important too. In fact, it is better to be wise than to be a fool who knows many facts. It's better to have a higher level of understanding life and have little than it is to have power and riches and live without wisdom. People live in civilized cultures and have many possessions and materialistic advantages to help them live a comfortable life, but their enjoyment with life is limited. Materialistic advancements, possessions, money, power, and position do not eliminate stress, nervousness, fear, anxiety, resentment, envy, jealousy, worry, agitation, or hostility. These intangible qualities must be neutralized and eliminated before life becomes enjoyable or safe. And this is done with wisdom. Happiness and contentment come from a quality of mind, not from a quality of material possessions. A way of life that is rewarding and abundant is always cultivated from within because success with life is determined by our inner growth. With knowledge, people conquer materialistic things, and because of this, they label themselves as being modern and civilized, but they are only truly civilized when they also conquer themselves. Elevating the quality of being, expanding the belief system, and tapping the wisdom of our own nature is the final step towards self-fulfillment and world peace. Crime, drug abuse, nervousness, and depression are not problems. The lack of wisdom, the quality of our belief system is the problem. Power, title, and position are given to those who have never had any formal training in managing people. And because of a lack of training in dealing with human relations, the goal of many leaders is to get tough and be more demanding in order to protect themselves and forcefully accomplish their tasks. But the goal of wise leadership is to be mature in thought, to be inspirational, and use power and leadership to help others grow together and learn about life. It's the duty of all leaders to give everyone a chance to increase their wisdom and expand their belief system. As someone gains in power, they should also gain in their ability and willingness to care about people. Successful leaders are those who accomplish their goals and at the same time build morale, teamwork, and add to the welfare of others. Growing and learning together is always a goal, regardless of what other goal is being accomplished. There is always two goals, regardless of what we are doing. Personal growth is one goal, and the task that must be accomplished is the other goal. Power, rank, or position do not make someone a good leader. The understanding of human behavior, sharing ideas, and being supportive in order to allow others to increase themselves is the way of a good leader. Managers, parents, leaders, organizations, or cultures will only find enduring success when they elevate the worth of themselves and others along with their goals and plans. So be wise and remember that one of the most important things that you can do for yourself, for your family, friends, business acquaintances, or community is to increase your wisdom and expand your belief system. And this is done when you use each task, each business transaction, each friendship or moment to improve yourself and grow with others. Have the courage, awareness, and inspiration to be new, to grow beyond your present self, to learn a different view, to gain in wisdom, and find a better self by expanding your belief system. Keep thinking about your values and belief system because this is your human equation, and your human equation determines your relationship with life.